Welcome back to the Family Focus. My name is Derek. I'm here with Jason. As always, just a little scheduling notice. Last week's episode was late to get out. We actually didn't get it out until yesterday, last night. Mistake on our parts. I will take credit for it. A little bit of a mistake, but it's okay. We did get it out. So if you do want to listen to it, that's where we did a lot of talk on the Casa situation, first base situation, and the organization as a whole. But we might touch on that a little bit, but we're not going to really cover a lot. So if you do want to hear my thoughts and Jason's thoughts on that, check that episode out. That'll have a lot of our thoughts on it. Although my thoughts have slightly altered a little bit on that, but not a ton. So just go check that out if you want to hear our first base talk. But let's talk about this past week for the Red Sox. They won both series this past week. Both series, and I just brought this up with Jason just before we started recording, they lost the first game of the series in both series, but they won the last two. And it's been a little bit of a weird theme for the Red Sox dating back to the Seattle series, which is after the White Sox 4-game series. Every series after that has been a 3-game series. So against Seattle, Cleveland, Toronto, Minnesota, Texas, and Kansas City, the team who has won the first game in the series has lost the last two. So we're currently recording as the Red Sox are down 14-2 in the ninth inning against
the
Tigers. It's over now. So Red Sox just lost 14-2 against the Tigers. So in the first game. So maybe that means they'll win the next two. But it is an interesting trend. But the Red Sox did go 4-2 last week. They lost the first game to the Rangers 6-1. Then they won 6-4 and 5-0. They lost the first game to the Royals 2-1. That game in extra innings, going 12 innings. No runs being scored until the 11th inning in that one. And then they follow that up with a 10-1 win and then a 3-1 victory. So let's just start with this, Jason. It is the first full week without Tristan Casas. We were in attendance on the 6th. Abraham Toro's getting some run at first base. Now Romy Gonzalez is injured. Now Nick Sogard's up. But how do you feel about the week as a whole for the Red Sox? I think when we looked at it, at least from our perspective, it was a solid week, right? Raffy Devers winning AL Player of the Week. There was a lot of good for this week. How do you feel about this past week for the Red Sox?
I mean, mixed. I think this was like quietly a mixed week because both the losses were kind of weird. I think the one loss against Kansas City was very demoralizing, and I feel like you have to include the game today, and it's Monday. I feel like we have to talk about it. I have a couple takes about what's his face, Tanner Houck. But going back to your question, how do I feel? 4-2. I feel like that's why is that what I predicted? I think I might have done 5-1. I don't remember. We're not keeping track. Whatever. Point being, I think what they need to do right now, first base is clearly an issue, especially with the Devers stuff. It seems like as of right now, it's not terrible. I mean, Romy Gonzalez did go on the injured list after a collision at first base. Kind of that got a very bad taste in a lot of our mouths. But I think too, the other thing that fans need to look at too is the fact that, you know, there's I think a lot of time between now and the trade deadline. This is another situation where I think, you know, you might have to find a Garrett Cooper. You need to find Dom Smith, right? You need to find that type of player.
Big Dom Smith moment.
Because Abraham Toro and Nick Sogard will not do it. And look, I get it. First base defense is important, but I feel like it's more important for other defense is more important on other positions. Now, Toro played first day. He had a really bad mistake, and I just didn't like what I saw from him. But that's going to happen when you have an inexperienced first baseman. So, but overall, back to the main point. Enough about first base for now. I'm going all over the place. The thing that I don't like from this week is just the loss. The one loss against Kansas City is just like, dude, you could have won that. And the Red Sox have, I think, they're 4-10 in one-run losses, or one-run games rather. Not good. Not good at all.
But with that, though, I do have to ask, with that, the record is bad in one-run games. But does that also maybe bring a side of it to where, yeah, they're struggling in one-run games, but at the end of the day, those one-run games very well could swing their way, and you could make the argument if this Red Sox team is kind of rolling on all cylinders, maybe they win a lot more of those games. Maybe that Red Sox team is a few games over 500. Heck, maybe they're in first place if they get some of those one-run games to turn their way. Obviously, that's a hypothetical situation, but does it bring hope that at least they're losing outside of the odd blowout games against the Rays and tonight against the Tigers, right? Does it still bring hope that this Red Sox team can very well be competitive and be a playoff contending team should one or two things maybe turn their way, or they start to get hot? Because obviously the offense has had its cold spells here and there, especially with, I know Christian Campbell. I don't. It's not a cold, not a Trevor Story like cold stretch. He's like he was like 3 for his last 31 for when I think coming in to the game, or like after his first at bat in the game. But he also he hasn't looked totally out of place though in that 3 for 31, right?
Right.
Um,
I mean,
but
it's not just him too.
Story's been freezing cold. Yes, Abreu's had his struggles at times, although he just had he's starting to seem like he might be starting to heat up again. Um, but does it bring like the hope of like, yeah, they're not rolling on all cylinders yet, but if they do, and I know it's a what if, but like, what if this team starts to really roll? Like, just how good can this team be? Because we saw it from Giolito in this past start, right? A really good start in the second start of the week, but his first start, we were there. He, to be fair, it was only just one inning that he really got away from him, but that one inning was what was the difference in them winning and losing that game.
Right. I mean, you look at him too, and you're like, on Giolito for a second, and then you're like, he threw one slider, he didn't have a feel for it at all, and it was wet and rainy. Like you said, we were there. But I mean, the other thing of note, Christian Campbell, like ever since they put him in the 4 spot, he's just been ice cold. I saw a stat, I haven't checked today, but he hasn't had an extra base hit in over 3 weeks. That's not great. That's actually bad. I mean, the 4th spot, the cleanup spot for the Red Sox this year has been real. I saw a stat. It's been really bad. Like, Trevor Story statistically has been your best cleanup hitter all year, and that doesn't really say that much. But yeah, I mean, back to the point, the one-run loss thing. It's like, yeah, it gives you hope. It gives you hope that this is this is fixable. I mean, it's not that it's not fixable. It's more so there's good to come, because one mistake is costing games, but it's the same mistake sometimes, right? And sometimes it's like, oh, the bullpen, oh, the offense is cold. We said it last episode. You said it last episode. The fact of the matter is the Red Sox have so many streaky players, right? So many. Story, Devers, Duran even. They're all streaky, and it's crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely is an issue with the team, right? But like, I'll even put it like this, right? I mean, maybe the 4th spot is an issue for them. I mean, I don't want the Red Sox to, move Bregman back in the line, because Bregman, especially hitting behind Devers, really forces pitchers' hands to really makes them have to pitch to Devers. So I don't love the idea of, but like, is there maybe a scenario where maybe it is like, you've got to figure maybe Bregman gets in the 4th spot, maybe, and they find someone who can hit in the 3 spot, or maybe it's even a thing of like, heck, you know, maybe Christian Campbell, if he starts to heat up again, maybe he ends up being your 2 hitter, right? And maybe it's like a Duran, Campbell, Devers, and Bregman top 4 in the lineup instead of having Campbell hit cleanup, right? I don't know. I'm just trying to think of ways to maybe get around it. I know the whole analytic thing of having your best hitter hit second because they're gonna get more at bats. But at the same time too, if your team's struggling, those you don't want those guys up with no one on base. And your best chance to have them get on base is to have good hitters ahead of them. And as much as Duran is a good hitter, but especially with the injury starting to hit, and your 7, 8, 9 is like Toro, Wong, and Rafaela, or Sogard, Narvaez. Like, not, like Narvaez isn't like Narvaez is a good player, but like obviously the defense is his calling card, right? So same thing with Rafaela. I love Sadon, right? One of my favorite, if not my favorite player on the team. But like, yeah, the defense and base running those are his calling cards. It's not the bat, right? And then obviously that first base spot is going to be what it's going to be for now, right? And in the short term future. So with that, like, would it maybe be beneficial if they could try to bump Devers and Bregman down a spot and hope someone can fill in the number 2 spot in the lineup? Maybe. But then it comes to who is that person
But
going to
who is
be?
that person? They don't have
Exactly.
anybody.
Exactly. Your best bet might be Christian Campbell, right? Because you can't put Willier up there because
Yeah.
he's a lefty unless you drop Devers to the 4 hole and have Bregman still stay in the 3 spot. But like, I don't know if that's the best way to use Willier because a team brings in a lefty and it's like, oh, now Willier's got to hit against a lefty, right?
Correct.
With
I mean,
Domingue,
yeah.
but like now I'm just like hypothesizing, right? Maybe that's your way to get around it with the cleanup spot being an issue. I don't know. There might be other ways to do it. Um, Maybe it's just guys are cold right now, and it doesn't really matter how you do it. Guys are cold, and that's what it is. That happens, right? Christian Campbell wasn't going to have a 1,000 OPS the entire season. Like, as much as I love Christian Campbell, it wasn't going to happen. The solution to this is not calling up Roman Anthony or Marcelo Meyer. It's not.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not
I think
Roman
for a different
Anthony.
reason.
For there's different reasons. I know also Roman Anthony. He fouled a ball off his foot last week, or maybe or something like last week or whatever, and all his hits since then have been singles, which is a little bit concerning. Not really, but a tad bit concerning because it's like, okay, he's not getting extra base hits, but it's not necessarily that he's not hitting the ball hard. He's just not lifting it, right? So that's maybe a little bit. Marcelo obviously has been doing well as of late, and he's been handling high velo well. Or at least that's what a scout told Bradfo. Which I'm not gonna say Bradfo's lying. I'm just saying that's what I don't have the actual numbers to back that up, so I can't confirm or deny that, right? Um, but like I don't think calling those guys up is like you're not going to put them in the middle of your lineup. They're not the answer to the issue of this team's cold. We need a bat in the middle of the lineup. They're not the answer. In all honesty, I think the only answer is you got to hope that these guys heat up, right? Trevor Story's been struggling massively, right? Right. We saw what Story could do at the beginning of the season, right? When he's hot, but with Trevor Story, those cold stretches are going to come as well. So I think it's they don't there's no real answer right now. Obviously, if Casas was healthy, it would help a lot because, you could bank on him or at least hope on him maybe getting hot, but that's not the case, right? That's just not what it is right now. We can't, you know, it's not what it is. And even like I hate to say it, but like there really is in terms of the lineup, there's nothing the Red Sox can do in house or out of house that's gonna make the difference right now. Right now, right now, they gotta just hope guys heat up. Down the road, closer towards the trade deadline, okay, that's different, but that's in July. We're in May still. We're not even halfway through May, so they gotta work with what they got pretty much for now.
Yeah. Like right now, I mean, we saw this last year. I brought it up earlier. Like the Garrett Coopers, the Dominic Smiths. You have to roll with that until maybe you can get a veteran first baseman at the trade deadline. You know?
Yeah, definitely. And in some ways too, like they've been rolling with what they got on the pitching staff. The amount of injuries they've had, right? Hunter Dobbins heading into this year was maybe the ninth starter on the depth chart. Maybe even the 10th, depending on who you're considering. Right? I mean, you look at the guys they have, and like Crochet, Houck, Bayo, Giolito, Crawford, Bueller, that's already 6 guys. And then Fitz was ahead of him. Priester was ahead of him. Criswell was ahead of him. That's 9. So what? Dobbins would have been 10th on the list, and now he's starting, right? Consistently in the big leagues. Like that. That says something, right? the Red Sox are at like the point where the 10th guy on their list is now in that 5-man rotation, right?
Right.
Now it helps that they've had some really good depth, and Fitz was pitching well before he got injured, and Dobbins has looked really well in the big league. Shout out Hunter Dobbins, friend of the show. We love some Dobby. Um, but it is it is very much like you have to work with what you have, and in terms of the lineup, the Red Sox have what they have, and they got to work with it, right? Rev Snyder is currently injured, but he's on the injured list. Yoshida can't even throw a ball. Like, he's not going to play anytime soon. Yoshida, in all honesty, if Yoshida was healthy, I would say, hey, maybe Yoshida becomes your two hitter and, Devers slides into the cleanup slot, right? If maybe that's a way to get your thing clicking, but like, Masa's not healthy. Or maybe Masa hits cleanup even at that point. Who knows, right? Not your conventional cleanup hitter, but like, he's not healthy, right? So he's out of the equation. Um, like, David Hamilton has not played great this year. Like, that's another option. Vaughn Grissom is a non-option right now. He is a non-option. He's doing pretty much all of his damage against mediocre at best fastballs. He's struggling against off speed. He's struggling against high velo. He's a non-option right now. It sucks to say that, but he is, right? You look down in AAA, your next option in terms of someone getting called up, if it's your options are Sabal and Grissom, and like I said, Grissom right now is a non-option, and Sabal would only be if it's a catcher, right? You look at other like position players who aren't catchers, your next best option is probably Nate Eaton, and he's not on the 40 man. And
Nate
even then,
Eaton, Trace Thompson.
it
You
would
start getting all those
it's
guys.
probably Nate Eaton. And Nate Eaton,
Probably.
he's good. He can play all over this. He's played games at third base and all 3 outfield spots this year. He played some second base last year as well when he was with the Royals and they're in AAA. But like, Nate Eaton's not going to make a difference in your lineup. If you need a bench piece, he's a nice guy to have, right? But he's not making that difference. So I think that, like I said, they have to work what they have, even in terms of like the bullpen, right? The bullpen's the same thing. You have Chapman, Slayton, Whitlock, Hendricks, Wilson, Weiser, Bernardino, Newcomb's their bullpen right now. Like, yeah, they have guys like Guerrero in AAA, and they have Zach Kelly in AAA, and I know Minkowski is now being stretched out in Worcester. But you have like Nick Birdie's been really good in Worcester, right? Really, really good.
Oh,
That's a
Nick
guy
Birdie's
he's been
been
amazing.
crazy.
That's a guy who might get a chance this year, right? Um, but like that's what they have for their bullpen right now. If guys start getting hurt in their bullpen, like they have what they have. I think that's pretty much I think in all honesty, that's been the story of the year right now for the Red Sox is this is what they have, and they're gonna have to live and die by what they have until the trade deadline, in all honesty. Because you look at this team, do the Red Sox could the Red Sox use a starting pitcher? Probably, like especially with how
You never
Strubles
have too much pitching.
with how well I mean in terms of like a number 2 starter. Yeah, they could, right? They probably could. But it's not that far fetched to maybe think Brian Bayo by that time midseason could be that guy, right? Or Giolito had the one bad start, but maybe the weather played an issue with it. Like Giolito just looked really good against the Royals, right? Walker Bueller, right? When he's healthy again, who knows what he's going to look like, right? It's not that insane to think the Red Sox might have just what they need in terms of the pitching side of things in the organization right now. But yeah, maybe they do add a guy at the deadline, depending on what things look like. But that's not absurd. In the bullpen, you can never have enough pitching. Same as another thing, you can never have enough pitching, starters or bullpen, right? So maybe they bring in a guy, but like with what they have right now, if everyone's at their best, or at least everyone's pitching about what you would expect them, even if it's not their best, if it's what you would expect from them, you could look at it and say that's a very solid bullpen. The lineup, though, yeah, it's a streaky lineup. That's what they have. That's what they're gonna have to live with. It's a streaky lineup. Like you run it down the lineup. You can make the argument every single guy in that line. Start from the top. Duran is streaky. Devers, I love him, but he's streaky. Bregman is streaky. As Bregman is sometimes more consistent. Bregman doesn't have a ton of like really low lulls, but he can get streaky too, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I mean,
like
I think he's been the most consistent.
yes, but like we know Bregman can get streaky because we've seen him go on some runs, like absurd runs. He doesn't hit the same lows that like some guys who you would call streaky do. He's probably the most consistent out of everyone, right? But then, like, guys like Willie are streaky. Campbell is, he's a rookie, right? So it's his first year. It's literally his first year in the big leagues. Campbell started last year in high A. Like, let's not like right now he's hitting cleanup. It's still, to me, as much as I love Christian Campbell, it still feels absurd because last year he started the year in Greenville and he's already hitting cleanup and we're in May. A year ago at this time he was playing for Greenville, for the Greenville Drive, which are the Red Sox high A affiliate. Like, it still seems somewhat absurd in my head that he's even playing, that he's the everyday second baseman and hitting cleanup for this team. Story, streaky be Willie or streaky. Like, your first base options are Abraham Toro and Romy Gonzalez or Nick Sogard, right? Once Romy's healthy. Like, it is what it is. Your catch, like Narvaez and Long, both seem like they're probably going to be a little bit streaky with the bat, right? So it's really going to come down to who's going to provide you defense at the catcher position, and that's Narvaez. And then Rafaela, like I said, I love him, but his calling card's the defense and the base running. The bat is streaky, right? And it's not a great bat to begin with. So,
And I think
yeah.
you can put a Roman Anthony in the lineup and have Rafaela be a super utility, have him play every third or fourth day. That's fine. That's what I think his role should be.
Yeah,
So
yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I just think that, but like adding Roman
no,
Anthony into this lineup doesn't solve the issue that like Story is ice cold as can be. Because even as much as Marcelo Meyer might be ready, right? Trevor Story is still being a valuable player to your team by being a solid defensive shortstop, right? And I think that not
the metrics don't disagree with that, but yes, I agree.
and I'm not saying Marcelo is going to be a bad defensive shortstop. I think Marcelo will be fine at shortstop. But when you have Trevor Story playing shortstop for your team, especially when you have a manager in Alex Cora who is very much values defense, I feel that it gets somewhat difficult to say, oh, let's take Trevor Story off a shortstop. Now, I will throw in the caveat that this year Trevor Story's defensive metrics are not friendly to him. He's got -1 defensive run saved and -2 outs above average so far this year. So that is worth keeping an eye on because if the defense isn't there and the bat is struggling, it very much makes it, oh, Marcelo is a legitimate possibility here, right? Even more
Mhm.
so than Roman Anthony. Because with Rafael, the defense is elite and the base running is elite, right?
Well, I mean, kind of related to the conversation we're having right now, like, would you rather, you're getting, I wouldn't say worse defense. Roman Anthony's a good defender,
No,
right?
he is. He's not Sadon,
Do you
right?
offset that with a all-star caliber bat, or Rafaela with a solid, okay,
But
get some pop
you
here and
can't
there?
bank on Roman Anthony being a world beater right out the gate, though. I think that's the issue.
Right,
That
but
like that's
right,
that's the issue with calling that's the issue I have with calling someone up to be the fix to your lineup, right?
but
Now,
he's not.
I'll put
He's like the spark plug.
yeah,
He's
but
like
like even then though, I don't like that, right? I'll put it like this, right? Hypothetically, let's say the Red Sox were able to trade for a solid veteran who could fill in the lineup at first base, right? That's the type of guy where it's like you make that move because that guy maybe is going to it's an open spot in your team, that first base spot, and maybe he's going to provide the spark plug. If you then on top of that want to maybe bring up a Roman Anthony, okay, or Marcelo Meyer, okay, but you're not putting all the pressure on those guys to be the difference makers or to be the spark plug that's going to turn this offense from cold to hot, right? It like that's the difference because if you call up Roman Anthony, even if he has a good first week or two, people are going to be clamoring for him to hit at the top of the lineup. And I think, especially in the market like Boston, like you have to also understand, like from a player side of things. Not that I don't think Roman Anthony can handle it. I very much think he can. I think Marcel, I think they'll both be fine. I don't think they'll have issues handling the fan pressure and the media, but like, it is something that somewhat has to weigh into the decision because if these guys struggle out of the gate and they're not the savior, it's a lot of the talk then, or especially too, even if you're a front office member, you're going to hear it of the talk's going to turn into, well, why'd you call the guys up? And I don't think that's going to be like a deciding factor in whether or not they make a move. But like, it always is a little piece in the back of that head where it's like, are they might be ready, but are they? But is it the right time? Right? I think timing is always key because as much as I think Marcelo Meyer and Roman Anthony might be ready, is the timing right at the same time? Because in all honesty, right now, one, I do think that they both have a couple small things they could work on in AAA, right? Yes, I understand the whole argument of, well, they could still develop in the big leagues, and I understand that. But at the same time, too, there are some things that might be better to work on in AAA with less eyes on you, and I don't think the timing is necessarily right. I think that's the other thing as well. I feel like this Red Sox team, especially offensively, is still somewhat trying to find their identity. Right now, they're a streaky team that is very reliant on Alex Bregman and Rafael Devers being hot, right? And then maybe one or two other guys also getting hot, right? That's what they are right now. But that's not an identity. That's just like I think this Red Sox team is still trying to figure out what they are offensively, right? Because
Agreed.
there's been an organizational push to try and limit strikeouts, right? And work at bats. But when your best hitter is Rafael Devers, as much as I love Raffy is one of the more aggressive hitters in baseball, right? Raffy can hit pitches that are clear as day balls, but he'll hit it and he'll hit it a mile, right? So it's not like yeah, Alex Bregman's much better at controlling the strike zone, but Bregman doesn't walk a ton, right? He doesn't walk a ton. He does draw his fair share of walks, but it's not absurd. Yes, he doesn't strike out a lot, which is very nice. But like Jaron Duran, he's gonna have his fair share of strikeouts. Willier's gonna have his fair share, right? So, like, I think the Red Sox know what they want to be, but they're not that right now. And I think that is an issue. And calling up those guys now, I don't think the timing is right as well. I think timing does play a role in it because just because someone's ready doesn't mean you're ready for them at the same time. And I
Good
don't think the
statement.
Red Sox are ready to call up both of them yet.
But I mean, would it hurt? No. But don't call him up just to call him up.
Exactly. That's exactly the point.
That's what I feel like you're trying to say.
Yes, that's the point. Don't call them up just for the sake of calling them up, right? If you're calling them up, you need to be able to put them in a position to succeed, and they need to be able to play every day, and preferably in the same position, right? I love Marcelo Meyer. Love him. This is the guy who's been penciled in as the shortstop of the franchise. We can't just move him off and say, oh, now you're going to play the shortstop a couple days, but then you're going to play second base, and then you're going to play third a day to give Bregman a day off his feet, and then you're going to, you know what, like, no. He needs to just play one position, right? Same thing with Roman Anthony. And they have a more of a chance to do it with Roman because they could say, hey, we're going to stick you in center. You're just going to play center. They could say, hey, we're just going to stick you in left, and you're going to play left, right? Although having Roman play left means he's going to have to learn the Green Monster. So maybe they do just stick him in center. Who knows, right? But it is very much like I don't think the timing is right. Don't just call them up for the sake of calling them up. Make sure that you're going to be able to put them in a position to succeed. I think that is the biggest thing right now. Those guys have to be put in a position to succeed, and I think the Red Sox team would be too reliant on those guys being that spark plug to try and get the offense going. And if it works, it might be really amazing. But if it doesn't, it has a chance to go downhill quickly because now you're taking playing time away from a proven veteran and a clubhouse leader like Trevor Story. Now you have a guy in Cesar Rafaela who's doing pretty much what you've asked of him in terms of being a Gold Glove caliber center fielder, being a dynamic threat on the base paths, and now you're going, oh, well, you've done what we want from you, but nah, now you kind of have to be on the bench and just move around all over the place when we've told you we just want you to play center field and that's it, right?
Yeah, that too. And also, like, I mean, there are extenuating circumstances like, oh, if Bregman, God forbid, gets an injury, who's the next third baseman? It's Marcelo Meyer. right?
Yes, exactly. And like there is that too, right? If something happens to Bregman, right, or Story even, right, Meyer's going to be the guy who gets called up, especially if it's a long-term thing. If it's a long-term thing, Meyer's going to be the guy. Like let's say Bregman's going to miss 2 months, right, or Story's going to miss 2 to 3 months. I do think that Meyer is the answer. Same thing with Roman Anthony with any of the starting outfielders. If Duran, Rafael, Abreu go out for an extended period of time, Roman's going to be the answer, right? But that's a better position to succeed than just calling them up now when you don't really have open spots and your lineup's kind of going through a rut in terms of like outside of really Devers and Bregman. Like it's not the best place, right? They're still winning games, but they're not winning games in a way you would expect a World Series contending team to win games. A lot of those wins are really scrappy or reliant on, you know, like yeah, even like yes, they're bad in one-run games, but like they have had a lot of games that are close, or like the 6-4 game against Texas, or I mean, you could even make the argument that some of their games that look kind of better by a box score in terms of the final score, whether it's like whether they win like by 3 or 4, right? Some of those games it's like one inning where they blow it open, but it still gets nervy sometimes with the Red Sox right now. The Red Sox right now, like the 3-1 game against Kansas City, right? The last game of that Kansas City series. Yeah, they go up 3-1 in the top of the sixth, but it wasn't the most of it wasn't the cleanest of wins, right? Wilson gets gets the last out of the seventh and the first 2 outs of the eighth, but then Weiser has to come in to get that last out. And then Chapman, has to work around a little bit of traffic to, get through the ninth. Like, yeah, it is a little bit like it was a little bit dicey, right? It wasn't as clean as it wasn't as clean of a win as you would have liked, right? And I think that kind of shows where the Red Sox are. They're not clicking on all cylinders. They're not, they haven't gotten the gears aren't fully going. Maybe they need to get some grease on those wheels, on those gears, and get them going, or make them run more smooth, because it's a WD-40 on those things, and like get them going, right? Like, get them running smoothly, because as of right now, like it is sometimes even the games that they win sometimes feels a little bit grindy or a little bit like a difficult thing to get through. I don't know if you kind of echo that, if you feel that same way, Jason.
Kind of. It's weird, but we'll see what
It's
happens.
like the games that they win, even the games they win, it's still tight. Even if it's not like even if the games aren't really that close.
Yeah, I mean, we just harped on it. I mean, earlier.
Yeah, but with that,
Interesting to see what happened.
yeah,
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
exactly, and that's why I think that's why it kind of goes back to calling up those guys isn't the smartest thing to do as of right now. Hey, they could. All I'll say is this, right? Everyone's clamoring to call up Meyer and Anthony, but if the team turns around the next week or two and gets hot and starts winning games and the lineup starts clicking, some people still want them to be called up, but there won't be nearly as much clamoring for it. But that is what it is. With that, let's move on to this next week ahead. Obviously, the Red Sox lost the first game to the Tigers, where Tanner Houck was on the mound for the Red Sox in a disastrous start. There's no other way to put it. And Jackson Jobe, who was picked right before Marcelo Meyer by the Tigers, got the start for Detroit. Outside of that, the rest of the Tigers series, Brian Bale versus what seems to be a bullpen game for the Tigers, and then the final game of the series is friend of the show, Hunter Dobbins, matching up against Tariq Skubal. Shout out Tariq Skubal, a reigning AL Cy Young, just came off a really good start. So shout out Skubal for that. Also was on my fantasy team last year and carried and won me a bet. So shout out Screwball, won me some money.
Shout out back spasms.
Shout out Chris Sale's back spasms. Which, speaking of Chris Sale, he will be making his. Is this his first start against the? Did he start against the Red Sox last year?
Yeah, he did.
He did. I was gonna say. I thought he did. I was like, hold on, wait, no, he definitely
But
did.
it's Sale versus Crochet.
But yes, it's Chris Sale versus Garrett Crochet on Friday night in Boston. It's Sale's. Did Sale pitch in Boston last year? Or did he pitch when they were in Atlanta?
I'm pretty sure he pitched. I don't know. Let's look it up.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that. But Sale right now has a 3.97 ERA this year. So yes, 2.93 FIP. I'm just saying though, the ERA is low.
Yeah. So I'll be in attendance. So they're off Thursday. So what? 5
Sale
games.
pitched against the Red Sox in Atlanta. So this is Sale's return to Boston in terms of being on the mound. So Sale's first game back in Boston while pitching, and it's a Garrett Crochet versus Chris Sale matchup. That's a fun one.
Yes.
And then the rest of that Atlanta series is Giolito and Grant Holmes, and then the Braves have Spencer Schwellenbeck, while the Red Sox are scheduled to have Tanner Houck go, but considering that Houck start today, we'll see what the decision making ends on that. But we'll save that for another time. We'll save it for another time. Because technically we will be talking about that Houck start next week. We absolutely will be. With that, Jason.
So 6. So we're gonna count this game as a loss, obviously.
Yes. So they've already got
6
one loss. So the 6 games of this week, they've already got one loss. What do you predict for the rest of the week, including the game they played today? Obviously.
So we already an automatic loss. So in the 5 games, I hope I have them losing against Scooball, winning tomorrow, and then the Brave series they'll take 2 out of 3. With that said, 500, 3-3. Derek?
I don't know if I feel as optimistic as you do. I don't have a great feeling
That's
about this.
optimistic. I said 500.
Well, I don't have a great feeling about this week. There's something about this week where I just don't feel confident. So I'm going 2-4 with this week. I don't feel great about this week. I don't know what it is. I have a really bad feeling Chris Sale's going to come into Boston and just absolutely shove and outpitch Crochet, even though I don't think Crochet is going to have a bad start at all. I just think Sale's going to come in and try to shove it in the Red Sox face. I don't feel confident about the Screwball game as much as I love Dobbins. Screwball scares me. And then if Houck does indeed pitch on Sunday, yeah, just mark that down as a loss. So I'm going 2-4, and I'm gonna hope it's better than that, but I can't go anything better than 2-4. But if the trend continues with with whichever team wins the first game loses the next 2, the Red Sox should be winning the next 2 against the Tigers, and hey, maybe they will go 3-3 or even 4-2. But with that, we're gonna wrap it up here with one last thing, Jason. Do we have a low moment of the week, or do you have one?
Oh crap!
I have one.
Yeah, what's yours?
The Dallas Mavericks winning the draft lottery.
Correct.
Straight up BS.
I was thinking about that.
Straight up BS. Trade away Luka and then you win the number 1 pick. Absolute BS. And they also only got it through a coin flip because had they lost that coin flip, the Chicago Bulls would have had it. And then, even worse for us Boston fans, the Sixers get the 3rd pick. Just
they're in a mess.
So well, but still.
Yeah,
but yes, the Mavericks getting the number 1 pick is an absolute low moment of the week. Like,
yeah, I think let's leave it at that.
Yes, we'll leave it at that. We're not going to get too much into conspiracy theories and draft lotteries being rigged. But just like the NHL, sorry, had to. Like, come on, really? 2 of the most obvious winners. But besides that, we're going to wrap it up there. For Jason, my name's Derek. As always, thanks for tuning in to the Fenway Focus. And we will see you next time. Say it out loud.
Go Sox!
Damn.